Welcome to Lead Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lead Different podcast. Today, I am excited to introduce you to our guest, Jon Rennie. Jon Rennie is a business leader, author, and speaker. He is the co-founder and president and CEO of Peak Demand Incorporated, a manufacturer of products for electric utilities. He's a former U.S. Navy nuclear submarine officer who made 7 deployments during the end of the Cold War and has been leading industrial businesses for more than 30 years. He is passionate about leadership and employee engagement. His articles and blog posts have been read and shared worldwide. He believes that leadership can significantly improve an organization's performance, and I happen to agree with him, and that's why I'm sharing him with you today. He's also the author of 3 best-selling leadership books, which we'll hopefully get a chance to talk about. But without further ado, let me bring on stage and introduce you to our good friend, Jon Rennie. Jon, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am fantastic, Dan. It is great to see you again.
It's great to talk to you again. You know, we met, it's been a couple of months, and your business has been really busy. I've been really busy. I'm just so glad we were able to squeeze a half hour out of you to record this podcast. Thank you for being on.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be on, and congratulations on all your success and this podcast and what you're doing in this podcast. So I really appreciate what you're doing.
Well, I love that in the intro, you talked about that leadership can change an organization, because you know what? I truly believe, and as a fellow veteran, first of all, thank you for your service. You did a full career and did some deployments in underwater and on the water, something that I would never want to do as a former Army guy. You know, we had to do a little bit of inflatable boat stuff in Ranger School, but that's about as far as I wanted to be, as close as I wanted to be near the water. But you did some dangerous stuff with nuclear submarines, so thank you for your service.
And thank you for yours, Dan. Yeah, well, at least on a submarine, no one's shooting at you, so you have that.
Well, yes, but you know, something goes wrong in a submarine. There's just a thought that, man, when things go bad there, they really can go bad, right?
And they do go bad. Yeah, they go real bad. Yeah.
And thankfully, hey, you're here to tell us all about it. But you did, you know, as I said in the introduction, you talk about the fact that leadership can significantly improve an organization's performance. You've led at really high levels, and now you've led companies for 30 years. What is the biggest leadership lesson you think leaders need to know that really can impact the performance of their companies?
Well, you know, leadership involves a lot of different things, and I think we get lost a little bit in the you know, the amount of things that we have to do. But what I like to tell people, it really comes right down to this: is that leadership is a people business. It's all about people. It's all about, you know, motivating people to achieve a goal, and it's those 3 things: motivation, people, and a goal. And what ends up happening is that we get involved with strategic plans and emails and meetings and Zoom calls, and we fill our days full of busyness, and we sort of forget that it's about people, it's about motivation and a goal. And if you can get yourself back into those 3 things and focusing on those 3 things, you're going to be much more effective as a leader than trying to, you know, get involved in every part of your business. It's about people. And I think that's the big thing I try to remind people, is get back to the idea of leading people.
You know, that's so important that you talk about. I remember when I first led people in the civilian world as a sales leader, a former colleague of mine said, you know, Dan, leadership is a people business. You are now in the people business, and that's the most important asset that you have. You talk about motivation. How do you, as a leader, take responsibility for the motivation of your teams? I happen to think motivation is either intrinsic, you either have it or you don't, but there's something to motivating people. So what are your thoughts on motivation?
You nailed it. It's intrinsic. And so what does that mean as a leader? That it means you have to know your people. You have to know what motivates them. And what's interesting is my basic training for leadership came on board a nuclear submarine where 155 guys got in a metal tube and they locked the doors for 3 months at a time. And we had to figure out how to get along and do difficult things. But we stood these long watches together, and I got to know my people in depth, and they got to know me in depth. So we knew each other. So I knew what motivated them, what frustrated them, what were their strengths, what were their weaknesses, what were their dreams, hopes, and dreams. And so I took that I don't know, it's a kind of an unusual experience, if you will. I took that to my corporate career, and I got to know my people, and I got to know what motivated them and what their career dreams were. And guess what? If you can plug people into your organization and doing the things that they feel like they've been placed on earth to do in pursuit of the organization's goals, you pretty much have, wind it up and you get out of the way, because people are going to do amazing things when they're doing what they feel like they've been placed on earth to do. Now, it's not easy. It's difficult. It's hard to manage all those resources and get everybody aligned. But when you do have that alignment and you do have a majority of your employees aligned, you can do amazing things.
I love that you talked about getting to know people at a deeper level. And you're right. You get in a metal tube for 3 months and close the doors. You're going to get to know people. Now, you have a choice as a commander, right? You can either get to know your people, or you can spend your time by yourself and just talk to them when you have to. Sounds like you took the opportunity to get to know your people. And you mentioned something about leadership that's really important. And motivation. You're not trying to motivate people. You're finding out what motivates them. What is it that they're looking for? And then helping them achieve their goals, helping them set action plans. So you've been doing this coaching thing informally, it sounds like, with everybody that worked for you, so that you knew that they knew you were there to help them achieve their goals.
Yeah, and I think that employees sense that, right? So they sense that that you are actually, that you care, and that you're trying to help them have a great career, have an effective impact on the company, and I think that they sense when they have a boss that cares. The kind of conversations you have with them is, hey, you're here. Where do you see yourself in the future? What skills do you need? What experiences do you need to help you achieve that? And giving them opportunities to have those stretch assignments, give them opportunities to get the training that they seek to be able to improve themselves in their career. I mean, having a boss that's looking out for them and they'll sense that you're not just about making the numbers every month. You're in the people business. You're no longer in the transaction business. You're there to help manage these people through their careers.
And so as you did that, one of the challenges that I find, and when I talk to leaders, is the better you prepare your people for the future, the more likely you are to lose them. So how do you help leaders overcome that challenge? Because I get that all the time. Hey, if I train my people really well, I'm going to lose them. So what do you do, and how do you overcome that objection from a leader who really cares and wants to help his people get better, but is also aware that, hey, the better you prepare them, the more likely someone else is going to come snag them away?
Yeah, but the thing is, you want the best working for you, right? So you want to make them absolutely to get to the best level that they can achieve in their careers. So I believe in transformational leadership, and transformational leadership is about transforming the business, but it's also transforming people in pursuit of the business goals. And so that means helping them achieve what their hopes and dreams are. And yes, sometimes they leave, but what I find is that they don't like to leave, because they're in a place where they have support, they have a boss that cares, they are able to do the things that really motivate them. And so they're more likely to stay. I run a small business now. I started my manufacturing business 8 years ago. I don't lose people. I mean, they can easily go to a bigger company and get more benefits. They get international travel. They have more advancement opportunities than in my small manufacturing business. but yet my employees stay here, and they stay here because they like the environment. They like the fact that they have a boss that cares, that's looking out for their best interests, that is, that is not about the numbers. It's about the relationships and about what we're doing together in the world. And I think you will, if you create that kind of environment, you're more likely to keep people than if they're frustrated with a boss that doesn't care.
You mentioned something really valuable there, and I think it has to do with the goals, right? Because you talked about in the beginning, you talked about motivation, people, and goals. So I think involving your team in the goal setting process and understanding their goals. So tell us the role that goals play in leading effectively.
Yeah, so I say this a lot, is that a ship without a crew is just a cold hunk of steel sitting in the harbor, right? It takes a crew to bring a ship to life. Well, it takes people to bring our goals and our plans to life. But here's the deal. Goal setting is something that only the leader can do, right? So one of the things that we can do is we can reach out to our people, we can talk to them, we can have sessions where we brainstorm and we look for the best ideas. But at the end of the day, the leader has to put the rudder in the water and says, this is where we're headed. This is where we're headed. And so it's not just this is where we're headed, but communicating the goal and the why behind it. Here's where we're going. Here's why we're going here. And here is how you can help us get and reach that objective. And the thing is, saying the goal one time is not adequate, right? It's just like a marketing message. It's got to be 7 times in 7 different ways for every employee to kind of get on board with the direction that you're headed. So yeah, this is there are a few things that only leaders can do, and that is to make the decision on where we're headed and then communicate that effectively with the team. So goal setting is one of the most important things that a leader will do. Also, one of the other things is to recruit the team, build the team, maintain the team, but also set the goals, communicate the goals, and make sure that everyone understands the why behind the goals. But really important, because I tell you, when I left the military, right, I came into the corporate environment, I was lost. I didn't know where we were heading, why we were, the goal was clear in the military, right? So the overall, protect the nation, got it. Okay. Serve my country, got it. Okay. Nuclear deterrent, make sure that we're ready to go if the country needs us, got it. Get home safely, got it, right? Those were clear. When I got to corporate, I didn't know what the mission was. It was unclear. Was it to make money? Was it to be safe? Was it to produce high quality? The message wasn't clear. And so I think it's frustrating when the goals are not clear. People don't know, what do you want me to work on? What's the priority? Because typically what we do in corporate is we say everything's important. And when you say everything's important, then nothing's important.
Right. So you've got, as a leader, I hear that you've kind of got to set the priorities and make sure people know what those priorities are. But more importantly, you talk about the why behind why you're doing what you're doing, so that, because, and I just had Kevin Perlmutter on last week. He's a limbic marketing expert. And so he said, Dan, people don't care what you do. They care why you do it. And They care what problem you're going to solve for them, whether it's your clients or your employees, right? You've led successfully led lots of companies. You're now leading your own company. What is it that we're missing in corporate America? Because every statistic I look at says employees are just not engaged right now. So what is it that we can do? What is it that leaders can do to improve engagement?
Well, here's what we do in corporate, and we do it way too much. So we take our best individual contributor and we promote them into management. So we take our best engineer, we make them the engineering manager. We take our best purchasing or buyer, our best buyer, we make them the purchasing manager. So what often ends up happening is we don't provide the necessary training to be successful in that new role. So when you move from the position of individual contributor to that of a manager, your role changes, right? And a lot of managers don't ever change their role. So they stick to doing what they're comfortable doing, which is maybe as an engineering manager, really good at making technical drawings. So they go back to doing technical drawings at their desk. and they don't make that shift and that transition to what their new role is, which is effectively leading the people that are in the engineering department. And so we often there's a long gap between when people get promoted and when they finally receive adequate leadership training. So and the other thing too is we promote people not based on their leadership skills or their observed leadership behaviors. We promote them based on their individual contributions to the company. And so I like to, when I'm looking for people to advance into leadership positions, I'm looking for that proven leadership capability. What have you done to lead a small team? What have you done to lead a project in the company? What have you done to to volunteer to do something that's needed in the company? So I'm looking for those people that have leadership, observed leadership behaviors, not so much the best person in the accounting department. And I think that's a shift that we need to make.
That is such a great shift. One of the best leaders I ever worked with that promoted me from a sales role into a sales leadership role said exactly that, John. Bruce Dayton was my manager, my sales manager, and he recommended that I be promoted to a sales leadership role to become his peer. And I remember saying, well, I haven't won President's Club. I haven't won the big prize. Are you sure I'm the? He says, we're not promoting you because you can sell. We're promoting you because you can lead. And so often, as you said, we see that we promote people based on competency, not on leadership. But it happens. So let's say there's someone listening right now that's been promoted because they were a really good salesman into a sales leadership role, or a really good engineer, and now they're leading the engineering team. Where does somebody go? What can they do what's the best way to learn leadership skills?
Well, the best way to learn leadership skills is a mentor-mentee relationship. So, in the ideal world, you would move somebody into a minor leadership role, and you'd have a coach above them or a mentor above them. So, the great example of this is the military. The military, you start off as a doer. If you're enlisted in the military, you start off as a doer, and over time, you shift from less of a doer and more of a leader, but it happens gradually. So you're given more and more responsibility over time, and which is a perfect way to do it. So I think it comes through mentored approach to taking on smaller leadership tasks and then moving into more advanced leadership roles. But I think what ends up happening is we don't do that. We just throw people in jobs. And congratulations, you've been promoted. You're now the engineering manager, and good luck. And I think that's the extent of what we do. And then we say, well, why is your department failing? You're like, I have no idea, because I've not been trained. I've not been coached. I've not had the opportunity to lead a small team and make mistakes and be able to evaluate ourselves. One of the things we did really well in the military was learn what I call controlled failure. So we would do a lot of evolutions, a lot of drills, and we put young people in critical roles, and they would inevitably fail, and we would be able to stop the drill, stop the exercise, and be able to say, okay, what happened? And we learn from those mistakes in a mentor-mentee kind of relationship. And we deeply learn these lessons because nobody likes to fail. It doesn't feel good. So we learn them and we get better at them. But what we do instead in corporate is we say, all right, you're in management, and there's just none of that opportunity to practice, to get better, to fail, and then to stand up again and then learn those lessons. So mentor-mentee relationship, having a coach. Like, for example, if you've been promoted into a management role and maybe you're not getting a mentor, go buy a coach, go find somebody that can coach you up outside of work so that you can be more effective, because it does really work when you have an objective outsider that's helping you kind of along and helping you learn these lessons along the way.
That's really good, John. So you brought it up. So let's talk about, you learned obviously a lot of leadership as a military commander. What was it like to lead on a submarine? And then how do you translate that into business leadership?
Well, it's interesting because one of the things in leadership is people, right? And a lot of times you get to pick your team. You get to recruit your team and get the right people in the right place. Well, on a submarine, you can't do that. You're stuck with the people that you're deployed with. So, well, it's kind of an interesting thing. So, how do you make the most out of the team that you have? And that really actually is a challenging leadership assignment because you can't fire somebody, you can't hire any new people, you can't promote people. It's all done based on what the Navy says. So you have to make the best of your team. And one of the things that's interesting about submarine leadership is it's 24/7, right? So you can't go home after a long day. You can't, open up a cold beer on a Friday night and take the weekend off, right? It's a 24/7 job. And that means too that for 24/7, you're on stage all the time. Everyone's watching you. They're listening to you. They're observing you. And so having that experience, right, really helped me when I got into a leadership role. At 32 years old, I got my first manufacturing plant and I had 140 people. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, it's just like the submarine. Every eye was on me. Because I was the senior person on site. We were kind of a remote manufacturing plant. I had the corner office. Everyone knew when I arrived. Everyone knew when I left. Everyone knew what I said. If I bent over and picked up a piece of trash, they saw it. But every eye is on you. You are on stage. And I think I learned how to do that in that role as a submarine officer, just because I was being watched 24/7. And so for me, at least, I learned like, okay, I'm being watched. Guess what? The things that I do, my actions, what I say, I can make them more impactful because I know everybody's looking at me. I'll give you an example. I took over a plant in North Carolina, and one of the things I said was, I got to make a splash. I got to do something that's going to signal what is important to me. So on the first day, I walk in, I notice they have reserved parking for all of the managers, right? So you've got the general manager, the supply manager, and all this. They all have, and it's on the concrete block in the parking area, and they have their titles on it. So I walk in the door, I meet the secretary, and I said, who's the maintenance manager here? And he mentioned who it was. And I said, have him come out and meet me in the parking lot. So even before I went in the plant, I basically met with the maintenance manager, and I said, can you paint over all of these concrete barriers? I don't want to have any inside parking when I'm here running this plant. And it's one of those things one of the lessons you learn in the Navy is that the rumor mill is really, it's one of the most effective communication tools. And so I knew that everyone would be talking about that, right? So it purposely used the fact that every eyeball is on me to be able to make a point saying, look, we are all in it together. I am not any more special than anyone else. The supply chain manager isn't special. Nobody here is special. We're all special. We're all in this together. And that's the signal I wanted to have, is that we are in it together to achieve an objective. And I'm not better than anybody else. I just have a different responsibility.
Simon Sinek talked about that when he talks about the why he loves veterans, because whenever you ask someone who does something heroic, you ask a veteran, why did you do it? And 99 times out of 100, they'll say, because I knew John would have done it for me. And that's that we're all in it together mentality. We're all in this, stuck in this tomato can underwater, right?
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and if we all do our job, we have a better chance of surviving. But if we don't do our job, if one of us doesn't do our job, there's a chance something could go seriously wrong. And not only am I going to die, we're all going to die. I love that you said that. In a submarine, oxygen is a precious commodity.
Yes.
You talk about earning your oxygen. What does it mean to earn your oxygen?
Well, it's interesting when you get on board, even as an officer. So you think, well, okay, you're an officer, so you're going to have instant respect. And that's not true. You have to get qualified. So you have to earn what's called your dolphin. So similar to the Navy SEAL who has their trident pin, Navy submariners have a gold pin with 2 dolphins on it. And it's like the most sacred thing that we have in the submarine world. And you have to earn your dolphins. And when you first show up to a submarine, even as an officer, so if you're a junior officer, if you're a junior enlisted, you're what's called a nub, and a nub is a non-useful body, right? And so what the more experienced sailors and officers will say is that you are wasting the oxygen and the food of people on this submarine who are actually qualified and and I can trust and depend on them. Right now, you're a liability until you are fully qualified. So there was this high sense of positive peer pressure to earn your way on that submarine. And that meant you had to prove to your peers that you were highly competent and capable, and you had their back in an emergency. You had to know every system, how to stand every watch station. I mean, I had to learn every valve, every circuit breaker, how the reactor worked. I mean, the operation of the nuclear missiles, the torpedoes. You had to learn every system from stem to stern before you can be qualified as a submariner. And so we had to earn the right to have that oxygen. We had to earn our oxygen. Now, here's the deal. It's the same way in business, right? When I first came into the corporate world, I realized that nobody is managing your career. You are kind of here. You have to figure it out on your own. And I actually took a page from the Navy submarine when I came to the corporate world. It's like, okay, well, no one's teaching me. No one's training me. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing or what I'm supposed to be learning, but I'm going to go figure it out myself. And like I did on the submarine, I went to the more senior people and I said, what do you do here? What's your responsibility? How can I learn this? What is it that we do here? And so I asked a lot of questions. I volunteered to different certifications and what have you to be able to support the business. But I really felt like I had to earn my oxygen in my career in manufacturing, my career in corporate. And I think having that approach or that idea of like manage your own career, earn that oxygen, I became more valuable to the organization. And I went from a cubicle to a corner office in 5 years. But it was all about just sort of, becoming more valuable to the organization. And I really highly encourage that people, wherever you're at in your career, be more valuable, and you're going to get, promotions. You're going to get the pay, that's associated with that.
It's a simple formula, right? Do more than you're asked to do. Give a little bit more. Become more valuable. Become invaluable. I noticed your books. You've written 3 books. One is You Have the Watch. One is I Have the Watch. And then the other is All in the Same Boat. What does it mean to lead like we're all in the same boat?
Yeah, that's my favorite book. It's my second book. It's the book that I really absolutely love. And it's just full of sea stories. So people ask me all the time. I wrote the first book, I Have the Watch, and everyone was like, "Where's all the sea stories?" I'm like, wait, I'm writing that book. So it's filled with sea stories. If you're interested in what life is like in a submarine, it's just filled with lots of stories. But the main message in that book was like what I talked about when I took over that plant in North Carolina, is that nobody is special on a submarine, right? So we ate the same food. We slept in the same size rack. When we didn't have fresh water, nobody took a shower, right? There were no special privileges for the officers and the senior enlisted on a submarine. So we were all in it together. And so I think that mindset of us being together to achieve a goal is something that really resonated with me. And it's still really important to me, even in my company today, right? I'm no better than the people on my manufacturing shop floor that are making products. In fact, I would say this: they are more important than me, and so I need to make sure they have everything they need to be successful. One of the things one of the ideas of All in the Same Boat is that your most junior employee is essential to your mission. And so one of the things that we did, one of the tasks that the most junior sailor did, was to operate the TDU, which was the trash disposal unit. And so we would shoot trash out of the bottom of the submarine, and we put them in these almost look like a little mini torpedo. We would weight them down, and we would compress all of, and it was not plastic or oil, anything that, but other things that we would put into the ocean. But so they had to compress and make these cylinders, and then they had to operate a device that would shoot them out the bottom of the submarine. Well, guess what that is? That TDU, that trash disposal unit, was a hole at the bottom of the ocean that we gave the most junior sailor responsibility to operate. And think about it. If they did it wrong, we all die, right? And that's essential with our businesses today. Is our most junior employee is essential to our mission. And we don't treat them that way. We don't act that way sometimes as leaders.
Yeah, that's so good. I remember sitting on a plane in Chicago, and where it's snowing, and they're having to de-ice the wings, and there could be CEOs, millionaires, billionaires on that plane, but our lives are dependent on that guy that's
Yeah.
de-icing the plane, right? That trash disposal unit guy has the lives of everybody on this submarine
Yeah.
in his hands. Very powerful. I love that. You seem like the kind of leader that's very modest, and you talk about the fact that your lowest paid employee, your lowest ranking employee is just as important as the CEO and the owner. That takes some training to do, and obviously your background in the Navy has given you that perspective. And I love the example that you just gave. It makes me want to make sure and go grab All in the Same Boat. I'm sure there's some other great stories in there. Let's
There's some funny stories in there too. So if you think that submarine humor is some of the funniest humor, so there's some funny stories in there as well. So
I am sure we would enjoy it. So John, tell me about our company is Why Not Leadership, and our podcast is all about leading differently. And one of the questions I like to ask is, tell us about a time in your life when you said why not to an opportunity, to something that you're so glad you said why not instead of no to, and how it's worked out. So tell us about a big why not moment for you, or your biggest why not moment.
well, I mean, I think probably starting a company, leaving the corporate world 8 years ago and starting a company is probably a big why not. Why not? We could do it. And I would say that's probably my biggest why not moment. But I'll just give you one that's maybe a little smaller, but it's really important. And that's during the COVID crisis, right? So I'm operating a business. We've been in operation for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years at that point when we first, got wind of this big, thing happening. And my employees were very much afraid. What does this mean to us? Are we going to have to shut down? Are we considered a critical resource? What's happening? And then, we got through most of it. Then supply chain became a real big problem. We couldn't get materials. And so I had to make a choice between, do I save the business by letting go employees, or do I keep my employees and figure out how to get back to normal once things returned, what supply chain returned to normal and what have you. I made the decision to not let anyone go during the pandemic, even though we had very little materials. I had employees making boxes in the factory for weeks on end as we were waiting for materials. It drained our company reserves. It cost us a lot of money to do it, but to me, it was the right decision to make. And now that we're coming out of it and we're growing, my employees are just completely dedicated to our success, and they I can tell they don't tell me directly, but they're thankful that I did make that decision to put people first over profits. It's painful, but it's also when you make those hard decisions, it really proves who you are as a leader. It really matters when the stakes are down. You have a difficult decision to make. That's when you really prove who you are as a leader. And I'm proud that we were able to keep everybody through the pandemic. Everyone's still here, and the business is getting better. We're very busy, and so I'm happy about that. But it's certainly one of those, like, why not? Why would we not put people first when this is what we said who we are as a company?
That's fantastic, and kudos to you and to Peak Demand for doing what you did. And I am sure that is a great example of, don't tell me you care about me, show me. Right? You can
Exactly.
tell people how much you care about people, but you made a decision with your wallet, with
Mm,
your reserves, and I'm sure and they say this in the entrepreneurial world, in the business world. If you're a business leader, if you're not nervous at least a couple of times a month, you're probably not doing it right. That had to be a tough decision. I'm sure you had advisors giving you advice to maybe do it differently, right? And there's a lot of ways for you to remain profitable during a really tough time. Which is, let me ask you this other question. Why do you think it's important? Why are tough times so important in a leader's career development?
These are the most important times. The tough times are where we build bonds for life, right? It's when we're in those tough situations. That's why we in the military, right? We have friends for life after we've done what we've done in the military, because we have gone through some difficult situations. And so you have only the person to your left and to your person to your right. And when you survive and you get through those difficult times, you have these deep relationships, because you have this shared experience where you don't know what's going to happen. And every great leader can point to a time in their career where it was the most difficult situation in their career, and that becomes the high water mark for their career. It's the time they always go back to and say, well, I led during this time. I can lead during this. What I'm dealing with now is nowhere near what I had to deal with back 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I did that then. I can do that now. So it becomes a high water mark for our career. It becomes every great leader. If you read any autobiography about any leader, there's always that point where they're in that absolute worst situation, and they discover who they are as a leader, and they come out of it, a much better person. So we hate tough times. Tough times are bad. They're hard. They're stressful. But we figure out who we are as a leader. We develop a new high water mark for our career, and we build these inseparable bonds with the people that we go through those difficult times with. So, yeah, I often say, if you find yourself in one of those difficult times, smile, because you're going to be getting a lot of value out of that later in your career.
That is such good advice, especially for those of us who are out there leading organizations, leading small, mid-sized, large organizations, and going through some of those tough times. The bonding that happens, you're absolutely right. In the military, that's forced upon us, right? Whether it's through basic training, officer basic course, the specialized training that we go through, we're all going through all those shared experiences, and we come out on the other side. Life is full of those peaks and valleys. Jon Rennie, thank you so much for sharing some amazing leadership lessons from your time in a submarine, and how you've been able to convert that to success in the corporate world, and now as a business owner. What do you say we end the show on that note, Jon?
Oh, why not?
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your leadership. We look forward to talking again. There are so many things we talked about today. I think I'm just going to have you back on again, Jon, to get another look at the other two books that you wrote, and talk some more about those leadership lessons. Thank you for being on, everyone. We'll be seeing you next week on the Lead Different podcast.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.